Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another one of our In Conversation with Lawyers series. And today I'm really delighted that we've got Flora Curtis with us, who is a barrister at 39 Essex Chambers and who really focuses and concentrates on complex environmental matters and deals with high-profile climate change litigation. Flora, thanks very much for doing this with us.
Thanks, David. Thanks for inviting me to speak to your students today.
Okay. Why don't we just start by saying what really led in your background to becoming a barrister or doing this sort of work? You did a master's degree in history at Cambridge, I know, and then rapidly moved into the bar. So give the audience a feel for what it was that predicated this sort of route in your background, if you can.
Yeah, so you're right that I came to the law probably via quite a circuitous route, not directly through doing a law degree. I did a history degree, and you're right, I did a MPhil in early modern history at Cambridge. And I think when I was doing that, I kind of decided that I didn't want to pursue a career in academia, but I did want to go into a profession that combined quite intellectually challenging work with also engagement with more present day issues. So that was the reason why I initially went on to do the conversion course and go into the legal profession. And I think in terms of going into the bar, it was partly just through gaining experience in both sides of the profession, the solicitor and barrister route. I think I was more drawn to um, the um, some of the kind of a strong emphasis on legal research and figuring out difficult, knotty issues that you get doing advisory work at the bar. And also, I really enjoyed the advocacy experience that I had when I did mooting and things like that. So that was kind of what decided it for me. I think for me, when I was studying the law, and I obviously only had a relatively short amount of time to do so because I did the conversion course, and you do most of your learning and studying and basically concentrated into 9 months. But I knew I had an interest in public law because it's quite I suppose, quite a political area of the law. Um, in terms of going into environmental law, I think it partly came through that because I did my pupillage and my training at a set that had a very heavy focus in planning law. And in terms of public law in practice, planning law is one of those areas that gives rise to a lot of judicial review challenges, a lot of statutory review challenges. So there's a lot of opportunity to do that kind of work if you go to the planning bar. And then within that, I think I was drawn to the environmental side of the planning bar because I mean, environmental issues have become far more prominent in political discourse, and in particular, some of the more pressing environmental challenges posed by issues such as climate change. It makes it a really fascinating and interesting area to work in, and also quite interesting in terms of, as somebody who did a history degree and then studied the law, there's quite a lot of science and scientific information and technical information that you get involved with and get to grips with as a barrister working in kind of planning and environmental law, which is quite interesting for me in terms of learning new things and trying to get my head around new areas of expertise. I mean, that's it's a really good question. I think certainly, as you've mentioned, those kind of boundaries between politics and the law are certainly something that have been very prominent in environmental practice and will likely continue to be very prominent in the coming years. I mean, obviously, we're recording this in September 2024. We've relatively recently had a new government that's come into place, and that always brings up its challenges in terms of how is the government going to put in place its ambitions while also working within the longer term legal frameworks that already exist. I mean, with this government, I'm sure there will probably be tensions in the types of practice areas I work in between, for example, the ambition to deliver huge increases in the levels of housing, and also the instinct to ensure that the environment is protected. Anyone who works in planning will know that there's often a lot of debate when new developments are seeking permission as to the environmental impact of that development. And often that can stop a development in its tracks before any construction has even begun. So it'll be interesting to see how this government deals with that while also trying to ensure that things such as biodiversity net gain, general biodiversity improvements are also prioritised. I think, other potential difficulties, relatively recent court cases have made quite clear that the obligations that are placed on governments by statutes such as the Climate Change Act 2008 are much stronger than perhaps had previously been appreciated. In the past few years, two of the government's overarching plans for the delivery of necessary emissions reductions have essentially been held to be unlawful by the courts. And so there'll be questions and challenges for this new government in terms of how are they able to meet their legal obligations and also obligations under international law without effectively making themselves highly unpopular politically by imposing unpopular policies such as things related to boilers in people's homes, the types of cars that people are able to use. And you see that also outside of the climate change arena with air quality policies like ULEZ that were highly unpopular for example, the Mayor of London prior to the mayoral elections this year. So I think, that kind of balance between trying to achieve legal commitments while also doing so in a politically palatable way will continue to be challenging. I think a final one that I'd just throw in there, we've obviously had a huge increase in discussions around climate change and the challenges posed by climate change. I think another one that's becoming increasingly at the forefront of people's minds is this question of nature depletion and biodiversity loss. The UK reportedly being one of the most biodiversity depleted countries in the world. That would be another one to follow, I think, and possibly interesting in terms of other interactions or difficulties between how we go about delivering on climate change commitments while also respecting nature, and what kind of interaction will there be between the need for large scale renewable energy infrastructure and maintaining biodiversity. But yeah, I think those are the three that I would point to over the next few years. I think, I mean, there's a lot of resources out there which go over a lot of the kind of core things that people can get involved in if they want to go into the bar. So I won't rehearse all of those. But I think, in this particular specialism, there are increasingly opportunities, I think, for students to get involved in conversations about environmental law with professionals, including a group that I am involved in myself. I'm one of the deputy chairs of a group called Legal Voices for the Future, and that's what we're intended to do is be a collaborative learning forum whereby young lawyers, including young practitioners, people in early stages of their career, but also students who are interested in environmental law, paralegals, other people who are not yet qualified, can share ideas and information about the ways in which the climate and biodiversity crises can touch on the legal profession and the type of work that we do. One way that we try to facilitate that is by holding monthly knowledge sessions, which are free to attend and open to anyone to attend. We have them both in person, and they're generally in London, or people are able to also attend online. And they are on topics such as the international wildlife trade, climate science and litigation, ESG, strategic climate litigation, topics like that. So sort of interesting topics that are becoming increasingly discussed, I suppose, in the environmental and climate space. We have a lot of recordings on YouTube of previous sessions if anyone's interested in those. But yeah, I mean, attending things like that are both a useful way to be able to get some contacts within the profession, people who are working there already, but also to get on top of information about issues that are hot topics in environmental law. We put out most of our information on LinkedIn. So as I said, if anyone would like to attend, they'd be very welcome to do so.